What's up, everybody? Andrew here with the Medellin Buzz. Today I am in Plaza Botero, downtown. I am also here with my good friend Felipe.
What's up?
We are going to be talking about the good and the bad of Medellin and give you a downtown tour. Let's go. I've been in Medellin for 14 years. I got here back in 2010.
Right.
I met you a long time ago. How long have you lived in Medellin?
I've lived here 36 years, basically not my whole life.
In your opinion, what is one of the best things about living in Medellin?
One of the first things that comes to mind is the people, and all the myths that you hear about the people here are basically true.
But what are some of the myths that we hear?
Everyone is super friendly, they're very candid, very warm.
Okay.
Stuff like that, that's all true. And the other things that you hear are true as well. If you give papaya, you will be delivered papaya.
Okay, so we hear that a lot. Some of this warmth and some of this candidness can also be two-faced, you're saying. Because 100%. If you give papaya, for those of you guys that are watching this and don't know what papaya means here, it's a fruit obviously, but it's also an expression to not make yourself a target, or making yourself a target, making yourself a juicy, delicious papaya that someone's just gonna wanna split open and eat without paying for.
And that goes through for interactions between locals.
Yeah, it's not just with foreigners and locals, it's just everybody.
No. We saw a dude selling like shades on the street up ahead.
Tengo la triple A, la Ray-Ban.
¿La triple A?
Sí, porque
¿Cómo es la triple A?
60.
¿Y por qué tanto? No.
Papi, en un almacén vale más de 200. Y ahí está a 20.000.
Pero la que Ray-Ban se vale 200.
Papi, esta es la Ray-Ban, la misma que vale 200.
Papi, ¿cómo es esta?
No, esa es más cara. Esa
No,
70.
pues...
Es que estas son gafas marcadas, papi.
¿Cómo es esa?
70.
70, ¿y por qué tanto? Ya, ¿cómo es lo menos?
60 la dejo pues.
No. Esas yo sé que son más baraticas.
Esta sí es de 30.
30 no me mató, pa. ¿30?
Sí.
No.
O sea, 30.000, no $30.
No, obvio que no, $30 no. Yo cara de gringos.
No, muchachos, aquí no podemos vender caro porque nos quitan el permiso.
Acá nos quitan el permiso.
Sí.
Si me la deja 20, me la yo.
25.
No, nada.
Llévela. No, es que el mal vendedor es el que no venda.
All right, got my new glasses because I didn't anticipate it being so sunny today because it rained all week basically. Are you considering a move to Medellin, whether it's part-time or full-time? I created the Medellin Masterclass Guide. It helps you understand everything that you need to do and actually execute on the things that you need to do in order to make your move seamless. I've helped dozens of people move to Medellin since November of 2023. So I created this free guide that you can download. All you gotta do is go to the link in the description below to the Medellin Masterclass /checklist, download it, and just follow the steps. And you'll probably have a lot of questions after that because it is a pretty thorough guide. So feel free to write me if you need to. What's another thing that you would say is great about living here?
There's one that it's really good and really bad at the same time, and that is transportation.
Okay.
Because it's really easy to get anywhere, whether that's taxi or bus or the metro. The metro being like the GOAT, as the kids say on the internet. But the real problem is peak hours. At those hours, it's impossible.
What do you mean it's impossible?
It's so congested, like the traffic gets absurd, and it gets absurd outside, like if you own a car or if you're in a taxi, and it gets impossible inside the metro too. It's one of the reasons I started walking everywhere, and I used to grab the bus and commute like everyone else. One day in particular, I'm not going, I'm working from home today, because for an hour and a half, 3 buses passed by, and they were all literally no one else fitted.
Really?
Yeah.
So you couldn't even get on?
No, I couldn't even get on.
And I know that's the strife that locals go through, because when I was teaching English here, like 8-9 years ago, I learned very quickly to schedule all my classes on non-peak hours, and my ride was like that. It was super nice, it was great. But if I did it where my class was at 8 o'clock and I had to get at 7 a.m., it would be nearly impossible. You'd have to be fighting with people to get in a bus or on the metro.
Yeah, that's the bad part, but in practice, it's very efficient.
Right.
And it's also because this is a very small city.
And I think one of the good parts about the transportation is that Uber here is very cheap compared to countries like in the US or in the UK, where, you know, a 15-minute ride in the US could cost you $60, whereas here it would cost you maybe 12 or less.
Yeah.
All right, so we're standing in front of this statue called the Roman soldier. Obviously you can see that he's huge and fat. He's also naked though. I heard there's a myth about touching the genitalia. If you look at some of the genitalia, the bronze color is a little bit brighter from so many people touching it.
Who doesn't get lucky after they touch genitals?
Who doesn't get lucky after they touch it? So that's the myth. If you touch the genitals, you get good luck.
I'm actually naked behind the camera.
Yeah. From the waist down, he's naked right now. Tell us another thing that is good about living in Medellin, in your opinion.
This is kind of a point of contingency for people. I think food is pretty good here. When we're talking about like dishes like the bandeja paisa, ajiaco, or even asudado, there's one thing to understand is that these are very humble foods, because that's the history of this country. And I think some people have a little bit of a misunderstanding with that, and they say, oh, it's bland. There's actually no lie there, because there's even a local saying here, like the grandmas used to say all the time, don't pull out on it, you're gonna get a heart attack.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So there is truth to the food being in season, but that's easily fixable. My mom, she makes rice without salt. Let's put it like that.
Rice without salt?
Yeah,
Really?
Yeah. Yes, it's normal. That doesn't mean the food is bad. It doesn't mean that your palate just has to adapt a little bit. And I'm pretty sure that if you tell the restaurant, can you put a little extra salt on my stuff, or can you give me a salt shaker, they'll give it to you.
Right, exactly. And I think here's another thing is that if you're coming down here and you are traveling on a budget and you're paying $2.
Menú del día is goated, dude.
Yeah, menú del día. But imagine if you're only paying $2 for the menú del día, how complex is the cooking going to be there? Probably not as much as, for example, if you go to a restaurant like Hacienda, Acto Viejo, where you're paying like $8 for a plate, where that's going to be a little bit more labored.
No, it's just a giant pot and a couple stuffs going, and that's it.
Yeah. So if you're paying $2 for a lunch, and then you go out and say that all Colombian food is bland, it's like, well, you got to dig a little deeper into your pockets and pay for something a little bit better.
The juices, though, the juices are always goated.
Oh, the juices, the natural juices. That's one of the greatest things about Colombia as a whole, is that you have a ton of fruits, so you have a ton of natural juices.
You like tomate de árbol.
Oh, I love tomate de árbol.
I hate it.
I always say that.
I hate it. This is my least favorite.
Okay, we're here in front of the Museum of Antioquia, where you can see a lot of Master Botero's paintings, because he's very famous for his sculptures, but also for his paintings. Now, rounding off the good of Medellin, I would say that the cost of living is one of the best parts about living here as a foreigner. Making dollars or euros or pounds or any currency that's greater than the Colombian currency. For example, I used to live in California, so living in Medellin is super cheap compared to that. But what about for a local? What is the cost of living for you like?
Rent in the last couple of years have definitely, for locals, have gotten worse. If you want to live in a quote-unquote decent place, it's going to cost you a pretty penny. There's no getting around about it, especially if maybe you'll get a sweeter deal if you are dealing directly with the owner of an apartment or something. But buying and renting through an agency, let's just say a huge portion of what I earn goes into rent.
Really? Really?
Alone.
And you are basically an independent contractor, a freelancer, you do video editing, you also do filming, I know. You know, you went to school for this, yet the cost of living, in your opinion, is not that great.
Yeah, it's not.
Especially rent.
Yeah, especially rent, because and it goes very substantially every year. It goes like 5% or something like that.
Wow.
And that's why you will find here that the vast majority of people either live still with their parents, or if they live on their own, they more than likely have roommates.
I see.
It's very rare to find people who are as masochists as me. Some people spend it on blackjack, I spend it on rent, baby.
So if you weren't living with your mom, would you be able to afford to live in the neighborhood of Laureles that you live in right now on your own, by yourself, paying the rent?
Yes, but it'd be painful. And I do pay the majority of the rent.
I see. So yeah.
So basically, at this point in my life, my mom is my room. Yeah, it's like basically she pays for a room
to live with you. Yeah, because she wouldn't be able to afford it on her own.
Sometimes you wonder how the so people do it here.
Yeah, but on local wages.
Yeah, and local wages.
As for other cost of living factors, for example, like food and transportation and just basic things that you need in life, would you say that that's expensive for you, or do you think it's palatable?
Food is hit or miss. Transportation, fair. I would say so.
Okay.
I think it's fair.
And what about entertainment stuff, like maybe going to the movies or going out for a drink?
Going out for a drink, it can get expensive depending on the kind
where
of
you go, yeah, and the kind of drink, yeah. Yeah, for example, I know you're a whiskey man, so I know that can be expensive because a lot of the whiskeys all of the whiskeys are imported.
All the imported alcohol is extremely expensive because
even tequila.
Yes.
Yeah, local beer
local
you can get
beer.
for like 75 cents if you know where to get it.
There's a good thing that it's good beer. It's not the best.
No, it's
beer.
not the best, but it's not bad.
Yeah.
Actually, we should probably have one because it is like 1,000 degrees right now. All right, so we found this little spot here to buy a beer. We'll see how much they're going to charge us. Why not? Aguila Light's basically like water. So it's costeña. Gracias, mami.
This is a very one.
It is good, yeah. ¿Cómo?
Las dos valen 8,600.
So I gave her a 20 and she gave me this back as change. I'm like, gracias. Okay. Los envases. De una. All right, so she said, please bring back these because they recycle them. We're gonna have a seat and talk about some of the bad things about living in Medellin. One of them is that you see gringos like this guy with young prostitutes like this one. By the way, guys, if you guys are liking this video, make sure to hit the like button. It definitely helps the channel grow, so more people like you can see the video. Also, make sure to hit the bell so that you get the notifications. Whenever I upload a video, you'll get a notification to your email. Or when I go live almost every Saturday or Sunday where you can ask me questions and I'll respond. All right, let's get back to the video. We are going to be filming this in front of where a lot of the homeless people and the very, very low income people, I should say, including homeless people, come and sell their stuff out here in open air under the metro station between Parque Berrío and Prado Station. We're not going to go in there because it's not very camera friendly. Let's talk about poverty. Has it always been this visible?
People getting here, like conglomerating here, is kind of a new thing
Oh, really?
from the last couple of years.
Okay.
Poverty has always been a thing here. There's a lot of people that choose to live in.
Really?
Yeah, because they can take advantage of people. They don't want to put in the work of maybe seeking an opportunity or something. They'd rather ask for money because the money begging culture used to be very, very, very large.
Really? So
yeah.
it's gotten smaller now?
Yeah, and like people would shame you if you didn't like give money. And there's certainly been a shift with that. People have wisened up about it. If you want to help these people, enabling is not necessarily the best part, right? The best way. It's better through donations to organizations that focus on helping people in this type of scenario. But there's also a lot of misunderstanding around why people are in this type of situation. There's a very common phrase. For example, if you see a dad selling candies and he's coming with his daughter, you can hear a lot of locals say something in the likes of, leave your daughter at home. And they don't understand that they don't have a home.
Yeah, maybe they're just renting a hotel room for the day, or trying to make the money to rent a hotel for the day.
That's literally what they're doing.
So there's no way that he can leave her at the hotel. I mean, I wouldn't leave my kid at the hotel.
No, and he can't even leave it at the hotel because they don't have
They haven't paid it, yeah.
Yeah, you have to pay first for the room to stay in. And so they usually wander around the whole day asking for money so they can pay a room for the night, and sometimes don't even get to eat. So
Well, homelessness has, during the pandemic, it was at about 40%, and now the poverty rate is around 32%. So it has decreased, but 32% poverty rate is still pretty high. And when we're talking about poverty, poverty is a lot different here than what you would think of poverty as in the United States or in a developed nation.
we're
right?
talking extreme poverty.
Yeah, we're talking about people that are living on less than $2 a day. So I think the main point for this is that no matter how much money you have in Medellin, whether you're a foreigner or a local, you will never get away from poverty. You will always see the homeless person. You will always see someone asking you for money. You will always see the person hustling for money that doesn't have a lot of things to sell, but is trying to sell something just to make a buck in order to feed themselves or to pay a room for the night. No matter what, you're always going to see that. So I think the best thing to do as, for example, for myself, is to, number one, be empathetic, not give everyone money because you'll go broke, but to also be conscious of the fact that people are poor here. So don't go out flaunting your cash.
Yeah.
Don't go into downtown with your iPhone 14 Pro Max filming yourself because you might get robbed, unless if you're 6'3", 190 pounds of pure muscle.
You'll get robbed, and that cell phone will be sold for like a quarter of what
Of
you
what
bought
it should be for, yeah.
So just be aware that there's a lot of people here with a lot of needs.
Yeah, they're struggling.
And with the struggle can cause impulse and stupid decisions. So just be smart about it. There's one unfortunate truth, and it's the corruption in the whole country.
When people think about corruption, they think about like the government is corrupt.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm talking about, when I think about corruption now, after being here for 14 years, I see it on every level, from the street vendor selling apples to the highest position in the government, which is the president, being corrupt. Is that something that you feel is accurate?
I would say so.
It's almost like you have to be corrupt in
No,
order
you
to
literally-
work in a high position.
You literally have to, because the way it basically works here is that you have to pay favors.
It's kind of like lobbying. In the
Yeah.
United States government, people lobby you and obviously give you money. Obviously, the highest bidders get the best leeway when it comes to propositions, when it comes to laws being changed. In Colombia, the corruption is a little bit more crude. It could be companies paying a governor. It could be criminal organizations paying someone off, whether it's the police, whether it's a governor, etc.
There's a lot of embezzlement.
Obviously, there's a lot of money laundering too.
Yeah.
So those people that are money laundering will have to pay someone off in order not to get caught by the DIAN, which is the IRS here, etc. Where you don't see those cases. Like when someone does like money laundering.
And not even get caught. Like DIAN will be like, dude, you owe us taxes. And they'll be like,
how can we reach a solution? So when we talk about corruption, we also talk about it in everyday life. For example, like if you get stopped by a traffic cop or a regular cop, they might try to extort you. And if you're a foreigner, it'll probably work because you don't know the laws. For example, if you're carrying like a joint, they stop you and they find the joint and they say, well, we're gonna take you downtown. We gotta book you and process you. You're gonna spend the day in jail, blah, blah, blah. You're gonna pay them some money. But if you know the rules, if you're a local, you'd be like, la chimba. Get the fuck out of my face, because you know that it's legal to carry it. Just little things like that. Or if you're even a local and you're just scared.
When we were talking about gentrification and whatnot, that even plays into it, because the reason that, for example, real estate has gone in price up so much is because people take advantage.
So even that's a level of corruption.
Yeah.
For example, like
100%.
the 90% of real estate that's owned here by Colombians, by the way, it's 90%. Those people are raising the prices on Airbnb because they want to squeeze as much juice as possible and take advantage as much as possible, because corruption begets crime. Crime here is a lot more visible than in most safe cities around the world, and it's not fair to judge Medellin against like your safe city in the United States.
For a lot of people, this is their safe city.
Yeah, for a lot of people, this is their safe city. For example, a lot of the people coming from Venezuela. All right, that being said, how do you feel about living here? Do you generally feel safe, or do you generally feel unsafe?
I can walk around this city at 1 or 2 or 3 in the morning, headphones blasting, no worry in the world. There are exceptions.
Yeah, well, we're in it one.
Even after getting robbed, which I got,
What happened?
a dude tried to stab me in the back.
What?
Yes, this was on Avenida 33. I turned my back to see if I could cross the street, and I saw the makeshift knife coming. I dodged it. We scuffled a little bit, and I was going to make my run for it. The guy managed to scrap me with the knife on my leg, and they ran away with my cell phone.
So if you would have just given your cell phone up from the beginning, he would have probably just ran away, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. But you didn't want to give up your cell phone.
but they were going to stab me, so they were going to stab
because
me.
they
Yeah.
initiated with that. So you were like, out of reaction, you just like tried to get out of the situation.
Yeah,
I understand that.
and I'm very stubborn, and I have zero regards for my own safety, so I fight them, which you shouldn't do.
You
by the
should
way.
not do that, yeah. So that's been like the most danger that you've been in your 36 years
Yes.
of living here.
And
And
in
you
the
walk
span
the
of 2
streets
minutes.
pretty much almost every day, right?
No, every day.
Every day you're
Every
walking
day.
around.
And I walk, sometimes you could argue, even more dangerous streets at even darker hours. I would argue that the most dangerous thing in this city is traffic, because people on cars and motos are savages.
Yeah, they don't know how to drive. So
Which
being a
is-
pedestrian
is
is
more
more dangerous than... yeah.
More dangerous than getting robbed or killed or anything.
All right, so I guess the general consensus between both of us is that even though
Don't come. Oh,
even
no,
though the general consensus between both of us is even though we've been here for years and you've had one run-in where you got robbed and almost stabbed, and it's generally safe.
Yeah, it's super safe.
Yeah, it's super safe as long as you're not an idiot and you're not giving papaya.
Have common sense.
Another one of the bad things about living in Medellin is prostitution. Would you agree?
Oh yeah.
As a local, what do you think about that, man? Have you seen it your whole life?
Yes. In fact, the church that's right behind us, it's called Guayaquil. It's one of the oldest, if not the oldest.
I think it is the oldest church in Medellin.
Yeah, and for the longest time, especially when I was growing up, that was the hot spot for like the lowest, cheapest,
I
most
see.
crime, most dirty, or like less hygiene, I suppose, and the trafficking and whatnot.
Do you think that prostitution has increased in the recent years due to, I guess, tourism and, I guess, foreign men coming here to monger, or has it always been this much?
I think it has definitely become more forward-facing.
Okay.
Because I remember I used to work in El Poblado.
Yeah.
Almost every Friday, you would at least go one time to Jeras. It's like one day they showed up out of the ground.
I remember that it was like right about at the pandemic, like 2019, that I started to see more
Yes,
and
yes.
more
It was
working women in Parquelleras, like at the park area. And there was a census done when they were talking about moving them all, like getting rid of them. And they said that there were 1,000 working women in and around Parquelleras.
Holy shit.
That's a lot. Like, we're not talking about just like 50 women. We're talking about 1,000 in one 2-block radius.
It's funny you mentioned moving, because that's probably what they did originally.
Right. So where everyone can see them, basically. Like,
And where probably they charge more
definitely
than
are
they-
charging more than
than they would usually
women
do.
behind us.
Because it's worth mentioning that not being caused by locals.
It's not being caused by locals.
People are paying attention to it now because the majority of clients are
Are tourists.
tourists.
Right.
The forward-facing ones.
Right.
Because the whole city, I guarantee you, is littered with brothels.
Oh yeah, of course.
And it's worth mentioning that prostitution is legal here.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning that it's legal here.
But-
And on top of that, even going back 50 years, prostitution has always been a thing in this country. I don't know about 100 years ago, but I know 50 years ago, looking through history, prostitution has always been a thing. And not only in Medellin, but in Colombia, because it is protected by the Constitution.
Yeah.
So it's not like they can make it illegal.
Uh-huh.
So that being said, that does it and concludes our list of the good and the bad about living in Medellin. Thank you, Felipe.
My pleasure. Hey, thank you.
Thank you, Costeñita and Águila. Cheers.
Not
We
an
will
app.
see you guys in the next one.